Hello, Council Bluffs Area Chamber of Commerce members. This is Drew Kamp, President and CEO of the Council Bluffs Area Chamber of Commerce for our March 19th, 2021 weekly legislative update video. A few items that I want to touch on. We'll start with the big tech bill, and that's the tech censorship bill we've been talking about for some weeks, and we've been working against for now about a month, a little bit more than that, since it was first rolled out in the Senate, and then now it's been picked up in the House. So the update on that is it passed the Senate on a party line vote this week. We continue to work with the House to kind of gauge their interest in taking up the Senate version and or what way they might try to instill any differences or insert any differences or regulation onto these tech companies and their view. And theirs is a little bit less stringent in the House. They're looking more at fines, whereas the Senate version looks at clawing back incentives and really making sure that local governments who may be providing incentives or doing any work with a big tech company from throughout the state would also then have to claw back any assistance that they've provided. So those are things that are very, very much a concern to us. It's bad business. It sends the wrong signal. It already has sent the wrong signal by these bills being filed in both the Senate and House, but it sends an especially bad signal when they actually pass one of the chambers. So it's something we continue to work on and look at trying to impact because of the concerns we have, not only, as I said, with the messages that it sends, but the fact that it does potentially lead to some possible litigation with the fact that it impacts existing contracts, the Senate version does, but then also the fact that it could potentially impact existing projects here in the state that we have with existing tech companies, but then also it could impact just our general relationship with them, but also just the ability to keep up their facilities. We think that these are not the best ways to address some of these issues that we are hearing on the national and local and state stage. These are things that we need to have more thoughtful conversations about and not try to pass bills such as this that really send, once again, the wrong signal and really make it look like Iowa is not open for business. We are very much against all of the bills, both in the Senate and the House we've registered against. We are one of the several business organizations who have come out to do so, and we will continue to do so. Google has their largest global data center here. We're going to continue to work to have an impact on these bills, and hopefully now that it's kind of the ball's kind of in the House's court, we can kind of work with them in a manner that we think will be a much more positive manner for not only the tech companies, but just the state as a whole, because there's a wide array of individuals who are very much concerned about not only the message this sends, but also the impact that it already has had and how we are going to have to make up grounds as a result. Another bill that we're also keeping a very close eye on is the flood mitigation bill. And what that bill does is it would give counties the same abilities as cities for debt issuance for flood mitigation activities. There were some issues that had come up with that bill. They seem to have been fixed, and it should move forward in a bipartisan manner. Obviously, with us being right on the banks of a very large river, we are very much watching that very closely. We've seen just in the last decade several floods, and having a resource like this where the counties could step in and have a more of an ability to issue debt to positively impact flood mitigation efforts, it would be very much a positive thing. So we look forward to that bill moving forward. Another bill that we continue to monitor is this one is with regards to medical residents, and it really deals with programs for family practitioners, with residency programs for family practitioners. But the reason I bring it up is because it's now getting lumped in with the malpractice issue as well. Those things are getting pulled together, and that can be a negative thing just because it can pull attention away from one issue or the other. For us, we've been watching the malpractice issue closely for several weeks, ever since it was first introduced. We want to see that go forward with the non-economic damage cap of $1 million. It'd be really important for our healthcare providers, especially on the border community, and having better coverages and protections across the river. It would be very much helpful for our healthcare providers to be able to attract and retain workforce. So we'll continue to work on that bill, and we'll also watch the implications that the medical residence bill is having on those, and on the tort reform and medical malpractice bill, and vice versa. TIF is another major issue we've been watching for some time. It actually passed out of the House Ways and Means Committee, so it'll now be into a House file instead of a House study bill. We really don't like seeing these bills move out of committee. The goal now would be to really talk with leadership in the House and really make sure that there isn't a platform or a basis for it to pass the House, because that's something we would definitely not want to be a bargaining chip once again at the end of session, just as we've said with some other bills throughout the session. It's something we don't want to have the whole full vote from either one of the chambers. We also need to continue to have conversations with folks in the Senate because that's something that's going to be very important, especially for communities that have some perpetual TIFs. Council Bluffs has one on the West Broadway corridor. And that's something that we are very cognizant of is the negative impacts that doing any changes to TIF would have on these communities with perpetual TIFs and just the longevity that's needed to have projects of impacts come to fruition in those districts. So it's something we'll continue to educate legislators on, and we hope that we can have a positive impact in that regard here in the last couple weeks, about 5-6 weeks left of the session. With regards to tax reform, we saw Senator Dawson's committee, the Senate Ways and Means Committee, come out with a bill, and we appreciate Senator Dawson's efforts on this. It was regarding the tax triggers as a result of the 2018 tax reform, but also the inheritance tax. That passed unanimously in the Senate. So kudos to Senator Dawson for his work and his committee's work on that. We are very supportive of that. We think it'll be a positive with the current environment to really make sure that there's additional certainty in the tax code, but it'll also obviously put some money back in and not only simplify the tax code by getting rid of some triggers and some different brackets, but it will also just allow for some additional investment, we think, and some money in the pockets of Iowans. And we always think that that's a good thing. So we are appreciative of the efforts that the Senate's made. And we hope the House will take that up and we'll see some bipartisan support in that regard as well. Childcare, there hasn't been a lot of movement on childcare this week, but we need to continue to push it into the Senate. There are some good bills moving forward that the House actually just introduced a few new ones just a week ago, and it was regarding to the high quality jobs incentives for childcare, and then also allowing a developer to get tax credits that could then be passed on to the end user, being that they would be transferable. So that's something that would be very much of interest. Childcare is a huge workforce issue. We know it's something that's keeping people out of the workforce, and right now in Pottawatomie County, we have below a 3% unemployment rate, even with the pandemic, and we really need to make sure that we have every tool in our toolbox being utilized to the full extent. And childcare is definitely one of those things that we need to make sure that there's every resource available is being utilized. And we appreciate the efforts the House especially has taken on the childcare issue throughout the legislative session. With broadband, it did move through the House. We were happy to see that happen. There was some positive movement there, and what's going to really have a positive impact on the broadband conversation too is the certainty we now have having the revenue estimating conference numbers come out this morning. That's something that's going to be of benefit to both the broadband discussion, the housing discussion, any place where there's new revenue requested. That REC number that came out today, or the statistics for the multiple fiscal years that came out today from the revenue estimating conference, are very much impactful. And we're happy to have those so we know some budget targets and some investment that they can now be looking at making in both chambers for issues like broadband. But we have been happy with the conversations we've had and the receptive nature of the speed issue with regards to manufacturing 4.0 with the 100 up, 100 down. And we've also been happy with the appropriation level that seems to be getting floated around. It's higher than what we may have anticipated. And that's obviously a positive as we try to move forward in both the policy piece and the appropriations piece as we try to bridge those two and bring them together as the session moves towards a close here at the end of the month of April. With regards to housing, once again, the revenue estimating conference will be telling there are some concerns with some of the additional appropriations, the moving around within the tax credit cap and the budgetary implications that has and the revenue implications that has. So that's something we continue to educate folks in both chambers on. We've had some really good documents made available by some of our partners at 712 and also Advanced Southwest Iowa from some projects that they've done that would show the impact of programs such as the Brownfield Grayfield tax credit program. And then also we know the impacts that the workforce housing tax credit program has as well. So we will continue to push for the full funding of those that the governor put out in her budget. And Debbie Durham has been advocating for on the Hill throughout this legislative session. So would there continue to be some good movements on some different topics? We do wish that there could be some additional business friendly bills of the fact that we have to continue reporting on things like the big tech bills and the TIF bills. That's not good for business. It's not good for any business advocacy organization that we continue to have to talk about these things and see those things move forward because they're negative things, not only for the business community, but also for communities in general as they try to attract and retain and grow investment and job creation in their communities. Those kinds of bills make it harder to do that. So that's something we're trying to continue to educate the legislators on, and we hope that we can have a positive impact in the last month of the legislative session regarding topics such as that. So with that, I will close out this week's legislative update. We thank you for watching. We thank you for your participation and engagement with the Council Bluffs Area Chamber of Commerce, and we look forward to you coming back next week and also joining us hopefully next week for our roundtable with our local legislators from 12 to 1:30 p.m. on Zoom. Thank you very much and have a great weekend.